Hello, podcast world. You are listening to Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network. I am your host, Lydia Turner. As always, sitting across is my dad, BT.
Hello, Foodie Friday friends. Good to have you here. We'll set the stage right now. First off,
Let's.
We're in the Alive and Social studios in South Minneapolis, just off the corner of 35th and Nicollet. Round the corner is Olarepa and Pat's Tap, and maybe not so much in honor of having those fine two establishments right in our neighborhood and not being too far from East Street, but perhaps it's the sunny and 63-degree spring weather that we're having in late winter here in Minnesota. We're doing beers while we're doing the Foodie Friday show here. Yes, we are. We're having some brewskis in the Alive and Social studios. Brewskis.
I'm
indeed.
sober cabin, though.
All right. So no.
Yeah,
no
Me
brew.
and Nate are sober cabin.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess I should have defined it a little bit. That we've got Larry Brenner here from Vino in the Valley. He's having a brewski.
Absolutely, from Wisconsin.
I was going to say, he's a Wisconsin boy.
When in Rome.
I guess, like they joke about Dublin, Ireland, 3 taps, hot, cold, and Guinness. You have something similar going in all the kitchens in Wisconsin.
That's a
or
good
if
point.
not, you dream of it. So you got that
Absolutely.
going on. Right. And Nate Beck is here from Nate Dogs. Good to have you in the room with us too, my friend.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Nate was confessing downstairs. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this. That
No.
he put an initiative out there, personal initiative, not too long ago. That if there was a something to do and there was driving to do, that he made his mind up a while ago. Nope. I asked him if he'd like a beer, and he said, "Nope. I'm just going to shy away." And that's why. But however, if there's not much to do, or if someone else is driving, bring it on.
Chug-a-lug.
So I guess we've defined the parameters of the guests and their
That's right.
drinking habits, and
That's
to a
right.
small degree here
Great
on
start.
Foodie Friday and the Alive and Social Network. Good to have you guys here. A real
Thank
treat.
you.
Thanks for having us.
We threw some props out to you the other day as you were going to join us last week on Foodie Friday.
Right.
And dad stuff happens, mom stuff happens. We get that. And so you've got 5 girls in your family, and one of them one fell ill.
One fell ill. Yep. It was. You get one that does that, and suddenly the other member of the family is working, and it's. Well, guess what? I think I can reschedule mine easier than you can reschedule yours.
That's
So
right.
that's what you do.
Yeah, indeed. We all, we're always sensitive to the family world.
I appreciate it.
Here in the foodie world.
Yep.
Father-daughter show. Of
That's
course
right,
we're
exactly.
sensitive
Right,
to it.
right.
You gotta be.
Yep.
The bottom line is that.
That's right.
Indeed. Hey, Nate, give us some insight. I've been looking around and learning a little bit more about you, and there's not a whole lot about what Nate Beck was doing in his professional world before
Yeah.
Nate Dogs.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So, what's your background like? Take us back to even high school, college, and
Sure.
then kind of bring us up to the Nate Dogs time.
Sure. Yeah. So college degree. I actually have a vocal performance major.
Very cool.
Cool.
Where'd you go to
So
school?
I went to my first 2 years to a small school in Cedar Rapids called Coe College.
Okay.
And then I graduated from Bethel here in the Twin Cities.
Nice.
So I graduated with a vocal degree with an intent to pursue musical theater professionally.
All right.
So when I was a senior in college, I competed. I actually did it my junior and my senior year. I competed at the State Fair in their talent show. So my first year I took second, and then the next year I ended up winning the whole contest.
Get out.
What was your winning song?
Yeah, so I did a song. This was back in it would have been 1996. I was singing in a show at Valley Fair that summer, so I was one of the performers at Valley Fair.
Nice.
In fact, that's where I proposed to my wife during the show. So I competed that year, did a song from Miss Saigon.
Okay.
Nice.
Which is now kind of seems a little bit dated, but it's
a great
Yeah, it's a
musical.
great musical.
Sure
So I
is.
did a song from that, just me and my wife, or at the time my fiance, playing piano, and that's all it was. And it ended up working out really great. But one of the judges happened to be the director of programming at the Ordway,
Okay.
and came up and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come audition the next time we do a locally produced show," which typically at that time was they were doing them like December-ish.
Yeah. So one a year.
One a year,
Right.
yep, because everything else was pretty much brought in. And they still ended up casting most of the main roles with people from out of state. So
Okay.
either New York or LA, depending on where they would find them. And then they'd kind of fill in chorus and smaller roles with people here from the Twin Cities. So I'll never forget it. We did The Music Man. I ended up getting a role in the chorus, that first show that I auditioned for.
Little singing, little dancing.
Yep. And the lead was, I'm going to blank on his last name. I think it's Joel. He was the dad on Silver Spoons, if you remember that show.
I do. Yeah.
He ended up playing the Music Man. He came in, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember watching this
He's
guy
like
on
a-
television.
he's a
He's the
Hollywood
greatest.
guy.
Yeah. Yeah, super nice guy. I had cigars with him one night after a show. At the St. Paul Hotel. It was really, really fun back when you could still smoke cigars in the bar,
inside,
you know?
right,
Yeah. and so that was my intent to pursue that. But I had a very interesting scenario happen. I was newly married, wanted to be married, really enjoyed being married, wanted to have a big family, and realized one of the out-of-state dancers that had come in to do the show comes walking up, kind of puts her arm around my shoulder, and she says, "Well, I had a very interesting dream about you last night."
I knew this was going.
Oh, yeah.
I knew dream was going to happen.
And I had I was the biggest yokel when it came to any of that sort of attention from girls, because I had like one girlfriend in college, and then I met my wife, and that was pretty much about it. Didn't date a whole lot. I was like, just whoosh.
Golly, Miss Sheridan, what was the
Well, then I
dream
realized,
about?
when I realized what was happening, I just thought, man, I'm not sure I really want to be in this environment. And I was really shocked how many people were comfortable having boyfriends and girlfriends on the side.
Right. And how unabashed she was about it in her approach to you, knowing full well probably already what your relationship status was, etc.
Because everybody talks. You all get to know each other. And I just thought, man, if I do this career for long enough, you're going to be out having beers like you guys are having beers, and you'll have had a long night, and you maybe have had a fight with your spouse about something.
And who knows what'll happen.
You will make a stupid decision.
No, thank you, Amaryllis.
That's right. And that was pretty much the end of my wanting to pursue theater. And so I still kept singing, and I'd get hired for weddings. I sing with my wife at our church. She's the music director at the church that we go to in Crystal.
Nice.
Actually, not far from where BT lives. But now it's mostly just on the side when I want to do it. I found I didn't like singing for a living as much as I liked doing other things. And so after that, I had a kind of several different careers or what have you. I landscaped for a while. Then I ran a couple of specialty Birkenstock shoe stores.
Really?
Yeah, there was one at 50th in France and one over in St. Paul, and I ran both of those shops for almost 10 years.
So I probably bought a pair of Berkeys from you,
You
at
probably
that
did.
shop.
I'm sure you did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was very good at it and really liked it and had intended to buy the shops. But the gentleman, I think, really wanted his kids to take him over.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I can either do this forever and be just bored and whatnot, and thought I should probably do something with, the creative aspirations that I have, and thus became Nate Doggs.
Nate Doggs was born. Yeah. And, we should explain to folks, because I asked you before, Nate Doggs, what'd you do? And you brought us up to this point here, but I should have put a little precursor out there as to what Nate Doggs is. It's a hot dog truck. That's what it is.
Yep.
Quality wieners.
It is as true as it comes, tiny as they get, sidewalk hot dog cart.
Yeah.
And I think what's really different about what I do, apart from my personality and my spin on how I serve hot dogs, is the fact that I operate a hot dog cart rather than on the sidewalk all the time. I operate it much more like the food trucks do. Mm-hmm. So if you go to a beer event, you go to a brewery or one of the big festivals up at Surly, there'll be all these food trucks, and then there'll be Nate Doggs.
Nate Doggs.
Yeah.
So a bicycle type cart with the serving unit,
Pretty
the
much.
warming unit in front of it, and condiments there,
Yep.
and an umbrella overhead.
Yep. And it's a little beefier than kind of your traditional New York carts. It literally tows right behind my orange van at 65 miles an hour. This tiny little 4x7 cart rolling behind it. Everyone's like, doesn't that thing just bounce around? And
It's got to have some serious bearings in those
it's tough
wheels
as nails.
there.
Yeah, it is.
We go hard.
In fact, I have two carts, and I was able to get the second cart because somebody heading to my kitchen in North Minneapolis, somebody rear-ended my cart on purpose and drove off, and the cart still works.
Take that.
Tough cart.
Yeah, I was stopped. Literally, I was getting gas and going across the street to the surprisingly really nice liquor store in North Minneapolis to get some beer to make mustard at the kitchen. And as I pulled out of the parking lot, this guy evidently didn't like that I pulled out, and he just tapped the back of my cart, and off he went.
But cart still rocks.
Yeah.
The cart manufacturers, they brought their video cameras out there for their testimonial video. Look
That's
what
right.
we made for Nate. It's
Yeah.
still rocking.
Yeah.
Even
Yep.
after.
So we're starting now. This will be the start of my 5th season.
Wow, it's gone that far already.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like yesterday when I remember seeing you and hearing about you first being on the street.
Yep. And it was, and it was really fun too. Even I remember you were there for, I'm trying to remember the name of this event. It was one of the food and wine experiences at TCF Bank, and they had kind of a food truck event sort of paired with it.
Yep.
And they had like the 5 best dishes there, and my hot dogs ended up being one of those things.
Yes,
I'm
they
like,
did.
see, you don't have to have the swankiest, food truck.
I was gladly one of the judges that day.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, if you can afford a nice food truck, great. But what I found with what I do for my business and how I want to relate to people, a food truck for me would actually be a big giant step backwards.
Okay. Just because you wouldn't be able to be, next to them, so to
Correct.
speak, while you're
Correct.
serving and really engage in that personal way
Correct.
that you bring to your business. Really, your business idea is to be
Yep.
close to your customer.
Absolutely. And to create an experience that's way more focused on the interaction that person and I have than it is just about the hot dog.
How did you choose what kind of meat you were going to use? Where did it?
I went to every small town and kind of, I guess you could say, artisan butcher that I could find within roughly about 4 hours of the Twin Cities. And so I spent one day just driving pretty much all the way around the Twin Cities, including in the Twin Cities, brought a cooler and just bought every, natural casing, whether it was an all-natural product, whether it was just their kind of standard house hot dog. Just thought, well, we'll start here and see if anybody has something that I like.
So some of the local butchers you went to,
Yep.
I mean, I've got my hometown of Robbinsdale, Hackenmuller's
Yep.
Meats. You probably stopped by
I went to
there.
Hackenmuller. I went to
Everett's, maybe in
Everett's,
South Minneapolis.
Yep, Everett's I really liked. Kramarczyk's.
Yeah.
And I liked Kramarczyk's, but initially I didn't go there just because there were a few other people that were already buying product from them.
Yeah.
Now Kramarczyk's makes a lot of stuff for me now. In addition to stuff that I get from a farm called Pastures of Plenty. That's kind of the main product that I use. That's their hot dog. And then Kramarczyk's does about the other half of that for me.
So you go to pastures, they just have a certain way of raising those critters too? Is
I
that a
think
big
so.
part of
Yeah.
it? Or at least the critters that they source.
Correct.
And then what they're manufacturing for.
Yeah, and then what ended up adding kind of to the brand of what I serve is it's, as opposed to being an all-beef hot dog or a beef and pork hot dog, which is pretty typical, it's all pork. So it's what hot dogs traditionally would have been as, Vienna sausages. It would have been primarily just all pork because that was the primary meat they had, and it was fatty enough. It was really, really flavorful. And so nobody else does an all-pork hot dog that I know of, at least in Minnesota, at this, size of scale. And so that's become my niche. And then add to that the fact that this particular farm, like a couple of others, it's heritage breed pork. It's all hormone-free, largely antibiotic-free. Some of the farms, like Pastures of Plenty does, they will use antibiotics as a preventative medicine for animals. If you don't use antibiotics, which is what happens when you have an all-organic farm, if an animal gets sick, the animal just dies. Or if they give the animal antibiotics, they can't include that in their...
In that natural or that
Exactly.
organic
They have
bunch
to,
of meat.
Yeah, they end up having to keep it for personal use or what have you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So your adventure took you, like you said, all over. How long did it take you to find the ones that would work then? I mean, that was a lot. And how many hot dogs were eaten along the way?
A lot. Yeah, and in fact,
That's a lot of sausage.
Pastures of Plenty was one that I didn't actually go out to their farm because they use a small processor to make to butcher their hogs, to make all their sausages and whatnot with their recipes. And so they've kind of tweaked the size of the hot dog for me and whatnot, so you get kind of a, like bang for your buck, so to speak, because you want the hot dog to stick outside of the bun a little bit.
You need that.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the
that's-
Pastures of Plenty...
That's the eyeball sell there.
So
right.
Pastures of Plenty was something that you can get them occasionally. I think they have them in the freezer section at, I found them at Seward Co-op, and they might have them at Mississippi Market that are branded by Pastures of Plenty. And so they're like, yeah, we don't have any sausages, because they make their own sausages at Seward. That was one of the places I went, but they don't have a smokehouse. So hot dogs are always fully cooked, smoked. But he directed me over to the freezer section and said, but people seem to like these quite a bit. And so we took them home and put those in the freezer and kind of forgot about them. About a month after our, sort of hot dog experiment, I came home and we had hot dog with, like I like to serve it with sauteed up onions, and then my house mustard is a honey spice mustard. And I was like, holy crap, where's this one from? We haven't had this one before. And she's like, oh, this was that last package. So I called up the farm and said, hey, you guys think you'll be able to make this many hot dogs for me, a week or a month? They're like, yeah, we think we can do that. And that was it.
Away you go.
Away we went.
Very, very interesting.
And I think my model has even gotten more pared down even than before. I mean, even now, I largely pretty much only serve hot dogs. I started out doing both wieners and brats. And now, because my business model has become more geared towards providing lunches. Companies will hire me to come out and set up the cart and serve just like I would on the street, but it's paid in advance.
Sure.
I do much more of that on a daily lunch basis than I do going downtown to set up on the street. And so having fewer options when you do that is so much easier, because if you come with a half and half mix of one or the other, what will always happen is everyone will pick one, and then by the time the other is left, that next person comes up and I say, well, I just have this left.
Oh, yeah, great. I'm not really much of a brat fan.
Exactly.
Or
And-
opposite.
Exactly.
I was hoping for not much of a hot dog.
Because typically when I had brats and hot dogs, those people that are under the assumption that hot dogs are crappy and of subpar quality
Yeah.
will go, oh, you have brats? I'll have a brat.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Some people I would maybe give them, a small education on it. Others, it's not really that big a deal. But I found out that just having the one option is actually much, much easier. It makes it easier for my prep because if I'm doing a huge event where we're going through 350, 400 hot dogs in an hour, I can't be doing two different, on my tiny little cart that's literally 3 feet wide. I don't have the space to do both.
Although built like a brick you-know-what house.
Built like
We've
a brick
already
house,
made
yes.
that clear.
That's
Yes.
right.
Mhm.
Yep.
Plus, brats take up so much real estate on a grill anyway. So,
Well, and I actually had them made the same size as the hot dog.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I wanted to do that. And in fact, whenever I do like a specialty sausage, I have it specifically custom made in a wiener casing so that you get same size side by side.
Really?
So that if somebody buys two, it's oddly enough, without any, tongue-in-cheek jokes, most people prefer the hot dog size to a sausage size. You'd rather have two hot dogs than two huge sausages.
Yeah.
very true.
Larry's smirking over there.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
really what it comes down to is that the sausage itself is fine, but once you add any amount of toppings to it, it just ends up becoming a huge mess.
It can be unwieldy.
It's like
Yeah.
a burger that's got too much on it. You just can't even really enjoy it.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
exactly. Slopping out the end of the paper and all of
Correct.
that. Yep,
Yep.
you want to be able to enjoy each and every bite.
Right.
With a full cross section of what you put on
Right.
top of there.
Right. And so then I always have two different mustards, one beer mustard and then my house mustard, which is a honey spiced mustard, and then generally two toppings. Sauteed onions, and then I do, depending on the season and the popularity, I've been serving a lot now. It's a hot and spicy relish that I make. So instead of pickled cucumber relish, it's all pickled chili relish.
Oh, nice.
So it's kind of like almost more like a relish / sauce.
Yum.
Got that idea from a place out in Buffalo, New York. I went out to pick up a vehicle for a sister of mine and drive it back across country for a fun trip in the winter, and stopped at this hot dog joint in Buffalo, New York, where they do charcoal grilled hot dogs.
Okay.
And they literally split them open and get them totally char grilled and everything. So it's a totally different experience than what I do. But they make this hot sauce, and I took a jar of it home with me, and theirs was far sweeter than mine, much more ketchup and a few other things. And I thought, well, this is kind of a cool topping. Tweaked the recipe
I
and
could
made
do
it my
something
own.
with this, yeah.
And it's been hugely popular.
Nice. Very nice. Well, I want to talk to you more about the mustard and the sauces
Yeah.
and stuff, too, in addition to other business stuff. But we're going to switch directions here just a little bit.
I'm interested to learn about Larry Brenner at Vino in the Valley and how that got started.
Well, I don't know if the Larry Brenner part is going to be that interesting, but no, I
how
had the
did
great
Larry Brenner get started?
Yeah, well, I had the great opportunity to work 31 years in radio with great professionals like your father, BT, and Dave Ryan, and the late Dan Donovan, and John Hines, and Muss and Donna, and all of those folks at Clear Channel for years and years and years. Started in '80 at KSTP TV, actually, as an intern.
That's where you and I first met, was KSTP.
Yes, that's
back
right.
in the day, working
That's
for
right.
Hubbard Broadcasting.
That's right. John Hines was kind of my mentor and hero. He had gone to Brown Institute, which I had done over here in Lake Street in South Minneapolis. And
Boy, everybody went to Brown Institute, it
Yeah.
seems like.
Back in the old location,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right down
Yeah.
from the Poodle Club.
Yep. Oh, yeah, right down from the Poodle Club. But 31 years in corporate world, and in 1989, my father passed away suddenly of a heart attack. And prior to that, I had been making a great living in radio, in sales. Was making good money, had a boat out of Minnetonka, and I never went home to Ellsworth, where I'm from, Ellsworth, Wisconsin. And I'm the oldest of four, and when my father died, my sister Julie really took it hard, and I started going home a little bit more. And 1994, I found some land down there, 200 acres. This farmer was distressed, and I thought, you know what? I'd like to have some hunting land, and there's the Rush River and Lost Creek go through that little valley and through that land, and I was able to negotiate a great deal, and I bought that 200 acres, which is now 300 because I've added on to it. So I had a boat in Minnetonka, and I had tractors down on the farm. And when I was on the boat, I wanted to be on the tractor. When I was on the tractor, I wanted to be on the boat. I said, Larry, you got to make a decision here, buddy. So eventually I sold the boat, and I actually moved down to that place, and then I started commuting from Ellsworth. It was 76 miles one way to work. But the best part, because corporate world is stressful, I'd round that corner and see that Rush River going to my home, and all the stress would just go. Whew. And as I owned that land for the next 13 years before we started Vino in the Valley, I was always thinking about what's my next thing. What am I going to do in my mid to late 50s and do something with the land? I thought about Christmas Tree Farm, and I thought about apple trees, and I thought about all of these different things. And one day, July 2nd, 2006, I'd had a great big party the night before. I know that's hard to believe.
You having a party?
Yeah.
On all that acreage?
Yeah,
With
down
friends?
by the river. Yeah.
You have friends?
Yeah, we had beer and stuff. But anyway,
Did you have brats or hot dogs or both? That's confusing, I know, for a lot of customers.
I think we went with both,
All right,
to be
very
honest,
good.
down there in Wisconsin. But anyway, we're at Gelly's pub down in
Stockholm.
Stockholm.
Yeah,
Yep,
just down
yep.
the way from you. Just
Yep,
a little further south
yep.
on Wisconsin 35.
Yes, we're sitting out on the deck that Sunday morning having a Bloody Mary and getting ready for breakfast. And one of my friends, Jenny, said, you know, you should do something like they do up on the hill up here in Lund called Pizza on the Farm. Pizza on the Farm is this old broken down farm. Every Tuesday night they have wood-fired brick ovens, and they make these unbelievable pizzas with all of the ingredients grown right there on the farm. I'm
It's a pretty cool deal.
Yep. But you bring your own guitar, your own chairs, your own wine, your own candles. I mean, people would do it up, and there'd be a goat walking by you maybe and while you're waiting for your pizza. And I said, well, I'd like to do something like that, but I want to be a little more refined, and I don't want to copy what they're doing.
Sure.
And she said, well, what do you want to grow? And I said, well, my last girlfriend turned me on to wine. Christine number 3, I think it was.
There were a series of Christines.
There were 5.
5 Christines.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, gals. I know.
How do you end up with 5 Christines?
Well, it's just a coincidence, I guess. I don't know. So anyway,
Sure it is.
Christine number 3 turned me on to wine, and I said, I'd love to have a little vineyard. She said, Jenny said, pizza on the farm, wine in the valley. I thought, wow, that's pretty good. So we went back to the river that day. It was a hot July day, and we sat in the river, and Jenny brought it up, and now all of our friends are sitting around a cooler in about 8 inches of water, and we're just cooling down in the Rush River. And she said, let's talk about this wine in the valley idea. And everybody else that wasn't at breakfast said, what's that?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Well, we started talking about it a little bit, and somebody said, in Italy, wine is vino in the valley. I go, wow, that's even better.
Boy, that was right out of the moment there. The
Right.
boing,
Yep,
light
yep.
bulb.
So then I said, all right, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? And if you look on the page right here, stimulate all your senses is in our brochure. That slogan was born that day, July 2nd, 2006. By the time we left the river, that day, we knew it was going to be a pavilion kind of built up a little bit with a slope so that people could lay in blankets, listen to live music, enjoy their pasta and their brick oven pizzas and everything in the Italian-based theme. Live music, we'd have walks down to the river and this and that. And when we walked out of the river that day, I'll never forget, one of my friends said, tomorrow you're going to sober up and forget all about this and not going to do it. And I said, you know what? If vinointhevalley.com is available, thinking to myself, Sonoma Valley, Napa Valley, there's no way it's going to be.
Yeah, no way that's going to be
no
out
way it's
there,
gonna be
right?
available. So I called our mutual friend, Michael Kithcart, the next morning, and I said, Michael, can you check on Vino in the Valley, the domain name, vinointhevalley.com? And she did, and she goes, what's that all? Just check and let me know. Give me a call back and let me know. She called me back, and she said, you're not going to believe this. It's available. And I said, shh. No. So I had to do it. So I built it.
There you go.
2007, May 31st, we opened up, and I'll never forget opening night, or the night before, we had a thunderstorm, and there was a lot of mud, and everything was coming down. I go, what have I done? I built this huge pavilion, commercial kitchen, out in the middle of a cornfield in this beautiful valley with a vineyard out there and everything. And people started trickling in, slowly, and we'd watch every car would come across the bridge, and I go, oh, that's a customer because they're driving slow. No, that's a local because they're going fast.
Yeah, you could tell.
And we'd even park our employees in the parking lot to make it look like more was happening.
Oh, yeah.
Fast forward, we're going into
Yep.
our 9th season. Last year, we served just under 34,000 people in 85 nights. And it was a 2 to 3, some nights even a 3.5 hour wait to get in.
Oh,
Wow.
So we've been very fortunate. I can't believe what it has become. But Vino in the Valley is a great kind of a day trip destination. You got the Ellsworth Creamery down there, Crystal Cave, the Great River Road, which Huffington Post voted the #1 scenic highway in the country.
That is a
Oh, did they
beautiful
really?
drive.
Oh yeah, along Lake Pepin.
We've driven
Yep.
that with our kids.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, half a dozen times.
Yeah, and that's
From-
8 miles south of me.
From Red Wing all the way down to, let's just say, Alma, probably that
Yeah.
whole
Yep.
stretch.
Yep.
You
On
know,
both sides.
you go through where your place is in
Yep.
Stockholm, and you go through Pepin and all of that. It's just fantastic.
Well, and now you even go down to Lake City, and you go even kind of farther down. You have the Chef Shack restaurant that's down there in, Lake City?
Well, on the other side
On
of
the
the
other
river,
side,
though.
on the
Yeah,
Wisconsin
other
side, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the whole idea was the vineyard, I didn't want to be a winery. I'm not a scientist. I'm not good with that stuff. And I thought, I'm going to take my grapes and I'll take them up to Northern Vineyard or Cannon River Winery. They'll crush and ferment and bottle my wines. And the restaurant would be the marketing vehicle for the vineyard. Well, unfortunately, the vineyard, and I was told this by the University of Minnesota folks out in western part of the cities here, Chanhassen, I think it is, where they got their farms out there, and they said, you're down in a deep valley. There's a lot of cool air, even though they're University of Minnesota grapes.
The cold,
that are
hardy
cold,
grapes, yep.
Not sure they're going to make it, but you can give it a try. And I thought, well, I'll beat the odds. Well, I've had a little trouble with the vineyard. The vineyard, we're still working on it. We've had a few small harvests, but the winter last year killed every single vine back to its base.
Our most recent winter, then, or the one before?
The one before.
The one
prior.
Yeah, when we had the polar vortex,
correct,
that hung over us.
Yes,
yeah,
it knocked them back. So we've had a little trouble with the vineyard, but the restaurant has been extremely successful, and we did plant Christmas trees across the road. So
you did.
We're open, Mother's Day weekend through the end of October. We shut her down in November. We wrap the whole pavilion up, decorate it for Christmas. And then we bring Santa and Mrs. Claus in and cookie decorating for the kids, school and church choirs, just a real limited menu. And then we sell choose and cut Christmas trees.
Nice,
so
very
kind
nice.
of extended our season. So it's going great. I'm disappointed on the vineyard part of it. We're going to keep trying. We're going to keep hammering. We have a nice moderate winter like this one. Maybe this spring they'll all come back roaring and we'll have a little crop this fall, but we'll see.
To your advantage is this world of cold climate grapes that are so much growing as an industry and so much growing in terms of their flavor, their texture, their quality. That wasn't there 5, 10, 15 years ago. Not at all.
No,
not at all.
No, it is.
So you bring up Italian being, it's called Vino in the Valley. And even on the menu, there's a lot of pastas, there's a lot of pizzas. Mm-hmm. Is that important to Vino in the Valley? Is that something that you really went in? You're like, I love Italian food. I love Italian wine. I want to try and do something like this. I want to replicate it.
Two things. One, I grew up watching HBO and The Sopranos. I wanted to be Tony Soprano.
Without, I'm guessing, all of the criminal collusion and murder.
Right.
Or maybe not.
Maybe not, yeah.
Hey, Nate Dogg, I'm going to tell you something.
That's right.
What happens in Wisconsin stays in Wisconsin.
That's
you
right.
know what I'm saying?
Especially down in the valley. No, I wine and pasta just seem to go together. Wine and pizzas. I mean, that's just kind of a natural fit. And I did really learn from Christine number 3 that there are many different kinds of wine for different foods. And if she heard that, I'll have to give her a heads up and have her check this podcast out.
And the funny part about it is, I know
on Twitter. We can all follow
I know
her
3 out of the 5 Christines. I think I do.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
I
do.
know.
You've met them.
We should hashtag that. The 5
The
Christines.
5 Christine. Hashtag 5 Christines. We love you, girls. We love you.
Yes,
We're just
I
having
love them
fun
all.
in the Alive and Social studios
To
here.
all my Christines I've loved before.
And Larry, you like to croon a little bit when you're out there, and they tend to be those sort of those Italian crooner songs when the microphone gets turned up out at the pavilion at Vino.
When our live music artisans take a break, I will go out and grab the microphone and greet. We seat 130 at a time. And I'll say, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Vino in the Valley on this drop-dead gorgeous Saturday night, and hope you're enjoying yourselves. And then we'll talk to people that are celebrating and recognize people that are celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. And after we do that and hear their story and where they're from, then I'll get back in the middle of the room on the logo, and I'll say, everyone, please, raise your glasses. Raise your glasses. La vita è bella. It means life is beautiful. Here's to a beautiful night, beautiful friends. Salute. So we all take a sip. And then on each table are the words to the song, Dean Martin, rest in peace, That's Amore.
That's Amore.
So I'll sing a little bit of, when the moon hits your eye like a big, and then I'll be quiet and everybody sings,
That's Amore.
That's
Amore.
So then I'll say it to everyone. Every time you sing, That's Amore, you clink your glass and you take a sip. And you do it for 2 reasons. 1, to celebrate life, La Vita è Bella. 2, by the time you're done with the song, you're going to be out of wine. It's all about marketing.
This is a
Schemer,
total
you.
upsell opportunity.
Yeah. Oh, we
happening
upsell them.
right here.
So they're taking them, they're drinking it, and by the end, the waitresses know that get ready.
Because we're going
Time
to
to
need
refill.
Need another round coming up here.
No, it's fun. It's a great feeling, and it's funny when I walk into the room. I usually will be over at the house, and then I just walk back to literally in my backyard is the business, and people say, "When are you going to sing? When are you going to sing?" I'm like, and at 3 a.m, I'm waking up in bed going, get that song out of my brain.
I can't get it out of my head.
Larry, how many seats does the restaurant have?
130.
130.
130. So we turn them over on Saturdays starting in July. May and June, we're battling graduations and things. We'll be full, but we don't turn them 5 or 6 times like we do in July, August, September, and even into October. But it's a 2 to 3 hour wait to get in. But while you're there, you've got the live music. There's a lower bar now, Bella Sera, right by the vineyard. You can take a walk through the vineyard. You can take a walk down to the river. There's a farmer's market, bonfires. You can sit with a glass of wine and meet somebody.
You got bocce ball?
And we have carriage rides. We do have bocce. Well, we don't have bocce ball. We have the Polish golf and the beanbag toss.
Nice.
So we've got games.
Cornhole.
Yeah, cornhole. That's funny how many names that game has.
Such a better name.
Yeah.
Although Beavis and Butthead like it is in its sort of inclinations.
It evokes a certain image.
I'd like to play. Who'd like to play a round of bunghole? No, wrong.
No.
I got
cornhole.
I got them cornhole. Got them mixed up again.
We just tell people come for the. Wait, no, I don't want to get this backwards. It's like, why do you park in a driveway and you drive in a parkway? I've always wondered that. But anyway, these are things I ponder. No, come for the food, but stay for the experience.
Nice.
Because the experience is what it's all about.
Nice indeed. Larry, I want to talk to you further about what it's like living so close to your gig. I mean, there's that aspect of it. And you also built a pretty substantial thing, so I'm curious, as we get into more conversation with Larry Brenner from Vino in the Valley, what it was like building teams to make that whole thing happen, because it's not just a single guy out there singing That's Amore and slinging pizzas. You've got a whole staff and a whole crew.
Absolutely.
And then obviously building that whole thing was a substantial investment and a bunch of effort as well. More with Larry from Vino in the Valley and with Nate Beck from Nate Dogs. Couple of quick stories from the foodie world here. 20-year run. Not a bad run for Jim and Patty Grell at the Modern Cafe in Northeast
So
Minneapolis.
sad.
Yep.
I know.
It's right in my hood, too.
Just announced. Yep. Lids lives in that area just off University and Broadway in Northeast. They debuted the diner August 8th, 1994, so 20 years now, coming up on 21. As Jim Grell mentioned to Rick Nelson at the Star Tribune, he said, the restaurant's 20. I just turned 50. And I'm old and I'm tired.
So they're closing.
You know, he's 50, and so
Yep.
I can see, the next phase in your career, and you're talking about that with you and 31 years in radio broadcast sales and such. Jim said, we're not failing. I just don't want to be doing this when I'm 60. And as Rick pointed out in this article that he wrote about Jim and Patty, when he went over to talk to them, Patty and Jim were down in the basement prep kitchen. She was scrubbing pots, and he was chopping vegetables. So, I mean, it's a lot of hard work that goes into something like that. Of course, their most noted dish, that signature pot roast, which has been known for 20 years in the food community. And in a lot of ways, 20 years ago, the food community here in the Twin Cities was amazingly different.
Oh, very different.
And the Modern Cafe was one of those bastions of just old-fashioned comfort food, but also quality old-fashioned comfort food. And they sort of put a lot of great tastes on the landscape, on the foodie landscape, and that they continue to this day, because that signature pot roast, among other dishes there, just remain among the best that you can find, no matter where you go in the Twin Cities for food. So congratulations to Jim and Patty Grell on 20, coming up on 21 years, but also a fond nod in their direction as to what might be next. Who knows what's next? They don't know what's next, and they don't know what's going to happen with the new owners there. They're saying we're going to let them make their announcement as to what might happen in the space, and also with that.
So it is staying open.
Well, yeah. So they're selling they're selling the space, and they're selling the business, and there are new owners that are coming in. But the buyer, according to this article from Rick, remains a mystery, and they're keeping it that way, like Jim and Patty said.
Right?
Yep. Jim Patty said we're going to let them make their announcement when it's time to make their announcement. So good on those guys. Just amazing. So get in there if you can. Do it soon.
Saturday is the last day that
this
they're
Saturday
open.
is the last.
This Saturday.
Holy cow!
Tomorrow.
So get in there soon. We're doing Foodie Friday on Friday the
breakfast.
13th
You could,
here. Are we doing Foodie Friday on another 13th? Yes, we
Yes.
did. Our debut
yeah.
Foodie Friday show
Is that
on
2 months
Friday
in a
the
row?
13th. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. There are 3 of them this year. I just heard this on the radio on I don't know what station it was on my way up here.
It
This
was
is
probably Go 96.3.
Yeah, I think it was actually. There are 3 Friday the 13th this year, and that's the last time until 2026.
Okay, so it'll be a while yet before, because leap year lines up, and then the next year, and this and that, and who knows what's going on. Also, CSA time, if you're into community-supported agriculture, if you like to throw in a little money, and then also throw in a little time, as some of those CSA operations let you go out there and do a little bit of your own farming. But, every week or every other week or whatever the case may be, you get your CSA box showing up on your front stoop, and in there are the latest round of vegetables, meats, who knows what. Of course, everything has a season, and so you move your way through different seasons of vegetables, and they'll often give you tips as to, all right, kale's in now, or carrots are coming in, or whatever, and then here's some dishes that you can use to make the best advantage of your CSA box
wow.
of veggies. Get involved in a CSA if you can. You can go to the Land Stewardship Project's website, and there's a whole list there of 66 farms that deliver to locations for pickup in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, and western Wisconsin. And so landstewardshipproject.org is the website. If you're interested there, they'll have the complete list on the website for you, or you can call them up too, and they'll send you something out. They have paper copies available. 612-722-6377. CSAs are pretty cool. Brings that agriculture right to your front doorstep.
That's super cool.
Very.
Nate,
Yes.
not just the dogs, but now the mustards, and as you mentioned, the relish that you're creating. So,
Yep.
and then I think I remember you mentioning earlier. Of course, you've got the wheeled cart, and you've
Yep.
got your truck.
Yep.
But you mentioned your kitchen too. So I'm guessing you've got sort of a prep kitchen that you go to, and that you
I do.
do some of your production work in and
Yep.
such.
And it's kind of morphed a little bit each year as I'm a big proponent of cash flowing a business and basically paying for things with the money that you actually have, and kind of waiting until you can make that really happen with more business and what have you. So we were able to add 2 years ago a great small little cargo van that's now wrapped in orange and white, so it looks like my cart. So now when I do catered events, or I do, let's say, a beer festival where I'm setting up indoors instead of with the cart, but able to figure out a really nice setup using warmers and whatnot, so it still kind of feels like the cart with the umbrella and whatnot, but I don't have to tow that cart all the way through the winter.
Yep.
My first year out, I was out 4 or 5 days every day in the winter, regardless of temperature, and it was
brutal.
hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah. My fingers, I think, are still a little bit frostbit from that. I go in my freezer, and if I'm in there a few minutes too long, it's like, oh, this doesn't feel like it did 4 years ago. But after the second year, I started bottling my house mustard, so my honey spice mustard, and it's pretty proud of it. It's a really nice product for those who typically aren't mustard eaters, because it's very easy on the palate. It's not too overpowering, but it's still got great flavor. Not too kind of sickeningly sweet like a lot of honey mustards can be, where it's mostly honey and just a tiny bit of mustard.
Yeah.
But we were able to have the labels and the packaging all done by Studio on Fire, which is a local letterpress company that just gets really, really rave reviews worldwide. They make really amazing stuff on printing presses that are, most of them, I think, largely over 100 years old.
Oh, isn't that cool?
Yeah, it's really cool. They've got a facility over in northeast Minneapolis, down in the basement, and it's a really cool place. If you can ever get a chance to see some of their work, it's really cool.
So it's got this old time look to it.
It does.
The typefaces, and just
love
not only
it.
that, but the
Yep.
way the ink is applied to the paper.
Yep.
It's just all old timey looking.
Exactly, and I'm a big believer in developing a brand and then doing everything to basically further and enhance that brand.
Sure.
That's what you do. That's a successful
And
brand.
that's what you do, yeah.
Yep.
And so, because I wanted to start with a very nostalgic feel to the cart, because hot dog carts are kind of old-timey anyway, I wanted it to look and feel that way. And so those mustard labels actually have kind of a little, like the colors bleed a little bit, so it looks like they maybe been there for a while. I mean, it all adds to that brand. It's a more expensive way to do it, but at this point, it's a nice add-on part of the business. It's not something that's a huge revenue stream for me at this point, just because I'm so immersed in running the cart day to day. But it's something that if I decide to maybe back away from the cart, I still have those products that I can do quite a bit more. So I think the next product that we'd like to package is that spicy relish, or that hot relish. I haven't quite decided on what to call it yet, but it's something that would be easy to package and would be a really nice add-on, not only for a hot dog, but for, you can kind of use it in anything. It'd be like a sriracha where you can you mix it with mayo, you mix it with sour cream, and you have all these different ways to use it.
Absolutely.
So that would be something that we'd like to do this year. So it's been kind of a nice sort of progress of seeing all of these things sort of come to fruition. And I think even my first year, I think it was the first year, Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine hasn't done it since, but I was voted best dressed food trucker of all of of all the food trucks. And I think, it's not as noticeable a deal when you have a food truck. You might not know that there are 4 people inside the food truck. You might see them all, but you see them maybe in shorter snippets because you're walking up to that window. But when you walk up to my cart, it's just me. And so I decided I like dressing sharp, and I've always had a penchant for clothes and shoes. And I thought, well, why not dress nicer? And I've never been a big proponent of wearing a lot of logoed stuff. So you won't find me much in a Nate Dogg's t-shirt because those are for other people. Mm-hmm. And I've got a buddy who has he has a rule. He never wears something from his hometown Minneapolis in Minneapolis. He always wears it when he travels for work. So you're spreading that message elsewhere, and then vice versa. He brings their stuff back. So I thought, well, why not wear nice button-up shirts? And I thought, what if I wear a tie? That'd be kind of cool. I'm like, I love wearing ties. So now if somebody sees me generally without, oftentimes mostly a bow tie, they're like,
an orange bow tie.
A lot of times, yep.
Okay.
And I've been able to there are a couple of local bow tie manufacturers that I've been able to buy their product and wear it, and now there are even 2 or 3 more that have popped up.
Nice.
Then that becomes part of the brand, because wouldn't you rather see walking up to a hot dog cart on the street, which already has the, kind of the moniker of dirty water dogs, and you see a guy there in a cool hat and a bow tie as opposed to a ratty t-shirt and a really crappy looking apron.
Right.
You're probably going to go to the guy dressed in a bow tie. At least that's hopefully the
would
intent.
Think so.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea.
And then I end up feeling better. And, I can't tell you how many people in the summertime are, what I call it, hot on my behalf. They walk up and their first comment, "Aren't you just dying?" Well, I think I'm okay, and I'll be sure to let you know if I'm really dying. But thank you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But you have a little umbrella over you, right?
I do.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, it's still not quite big enough to actually cover you from the sun because it's always in the wrong spot, but that's just part of the business. So
I got a question for both of you guys, because we come from foodie people. My mom had her food business where she did cheese tortas, and it's really hard to grow and sustain and start up a food or a wine business. How much interaction with your family or friends were pulled in as far as building it up, growing it, and now in its sustaining?
Well, I had a lot of help. I through my job as a radio salesperson, we were always doing brainstorming sessions and putting ideas up on the wall on those big pieces of paper,
whiteboards or whatever.
Yep. And I was fortunate to know a couple of gals, Michael Kithcart and Amber Vodka, both big idea people. And I had them come to my home, actually, and then I got friends and family, just like you said, Lydia, come to the house, and what's that called? They handled the meeting. There's a word for that. But anyway.
Facilitated the meeting.
Thank you, Brian. And we did. What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? And we really, really wrote everything down and got rid of it. There was no judging or anything like that. But
brainstorming.
Yeah, brainstorming, took the ideas that we liked. And I tell you, I'm very lucky in regards to the builder that built Vino and the Pavilion. It's just slanted just right to the southwest with the money shot of the valley. I couldn't. Again, I think a lot of it was, we did work hard on the ideas.
Yep.
But when we put them into a plan and did them, we were lucky to have built the right structure in the right place with the right view. And now our guests, they come there and they don't want to leave.
That's a good problem.
Well, it's fun when you plan it and then it works out better than you had intended.
It did work out better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate with, when I first started, I had a local designer, a guy by the name of Jeff Holmberg, has a company called Holmberg Design Company. And I had met him at a golf tournament back when I was still selling shoes. And he was there sponsoring one of the holes. And I was really taken by his own business card. And so I looked him up and I thought, man, this guy really does some cool work. So he was my first call, and I started with him to craft that logo. And then when it came time to bottle the mustard, it was his suggestion to work with Studio on Fire because a mutual friend of his or one of his good friends owns that company. And then each of those relationships has gone in and started another one. The fact that I make mustards out of local beers. I put a tweet out there in my first season. This was 2011, and I thought, hey, local brewers, I'd love to make mustard out of your beers. Anybody be interested in, letting me buy some beer from you? Fulton was one of the first breweries that they were literally just building out the facility. Just getting started. They contacted me and got me some beer. Well, that then just all spiraled. And then I made it a point, once you start to know those people, to then intentionally develop friendships with those people. Stay afterwards, have a beer with them, invest time in them. We've had several of those brewers out to our house for barbecues, with our kids, just to spend time with them, not talking about work. Because I think it's really important that if you're going to do that, you have to invest in people a lot. You have to really be there. And so it's really important to me to do that, because then the work that comes from that is far more meaningful and it's far more lasting.
And it has an earnestness that otherwise might not be there.
Yeah. Some might call this irresponsible. And for me, it's an aspect of my faith that comes into this, that my wife and I said, when we're going to start this, we're not going to really go out and campaign or call for any events whatsoever. If this is really something that we believe is going to be a great venture, then then we have the faith that that's going to work. And you work really hard. So you go out and you go, we got a corner and we did all of that. It wasn't like we just said, this is going to be the greatest.
I hope this works out.
Yeah, right. We worked really, really hard, and I put in long, long hours and still put in long hours. But then when you get that first event, you go so far above and beyond to outserve them that you go, well, at least they're going to be left with this great taste in their mouth about how we served them, how we were, how our attitudes were. And it's really worked out extremely well because it's just grown one after another. In fact, one of the things I'm most proud of with our business is I have a slogan on the bottom of my menu board, if you look really closely, that says, "Get a dog, give a dog." And so it started out my first season literally giving away one hot dog for every hot dog we sold.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it worked out really well because we were able to do that. It just so happened when I launched in May of 2011, that's when the tornado went through North Minneapolis.
That's right.
We gave away several thousand hot dogs in the parking lot of Cub Foods with a couple other food trucks those first few days.
That Cub Foods
right on Broadway.
On Broadway, yeah.
And just serving people, giving away free food. And I even went so far as to go buy all beef hot dogs because in that community, largely all beef hot dogs are far more standard than an all pork hot dog.
Than a pork one. Okay.
Some it's religious, preferences that they can't have it, or it's just kind of that was something that we thought was important. I'm like, I don't want this hot dog to not have people eat it because of the wrong meat or whatever.
Sure.
Well, then we realized that there just aren't enough hours in the day to give free food away to people that actually serve from the carts. We thought, well, what can we do that would be similar to that? And we have a charity that's based up in Coon Rapids called Feed My Starving Children, which does amazing work. And for 22 cents, you can feed a fully nutritional meal to someone who needs it.
Know the program well.
Yep,
It's amazing.
Yep. And so we've been able to donate somewhere in the vicinity of 50 to 55,000 meals so far to Feed My Starving Children for every hot dog that we sell. And so it's just been it's been very worthwhile to be able to do that with the business, and then to show that as a way to go, hey, we can still make money and give back to the community. So that's something that I'm really, really proud of.
Yeah. That give back is a huge part of that narrative. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you have 5 girls. How did that work out as an up and coming company and have this kind of family to support and still trying to do something that's cool and give the time that it needs and dedicate it to that? How did that balance out?
I think it actually works out. It's a lot crazier than most people would probably, take on having a family of that size. I started it when I was 37. I'm 41 now, or 36, I should say. And really wanted to do something. I'm at that point, I think, where if I don't do this, I'll never do it. But what we did is we involved the kids in all of those ventures. So like when we gave food away in North Minneapolis, my kids were there helping. And in fact, I even got my first invite to do a beer event at Surly, which was like my holy grail of beer events. I'm like, if I can get my card in at Surly, that would be like, whoa. I've been a fan for a long time. They saw me giving food away in North Minneapolis and thought, oh, that guy seems pretty cool. We like what he does. We donate a lot of stuff through their Surly Gives a Damn program. That was my first invitation, and I've been able to do stuff there ever since. And I'm like,
awesome.
How cool is it that just by doing something for someone else, somebody notices and goes, hey, we'd like you to come and be a part of this. So my kids were there for that. In fact, I remember Josh Toma from the Smack Shack pulled his truck up, and they had all this food that had been donated that they were kind of whipping together in the truck. And we were in literally that parking lot of the old, what was it called, Fire and Ice. Do you remember that?
Yes.
and it was like shards of glass and wood everywhere. I mean, it was a mess. And there we are, pulled up with our food trucks and our hot dog cart, giving food away. But what we've done is it's been a little trickier the last couple of years as our girls get older. So my oldest daughter's 15. My youngest daughters are twins at 8 years old. And then we have 12 and 10-year-old as well.
Wow.
The first 2 years, they would come at least 2 to 3 days a week. I would have one daughter come and help with lunch down at my corner. But then as I started to get more events where I was working a lunch, and then I would go and work at a brewery in the evening, or I'd go and cater a party, or I'd do a wedding as the late night snack. I can't be taking an 8-year-old for 15 hours and expect that they're not going to be completely comatose by the end of that.
Keep up.
Yeah. So
More mustard, hon. More mustard.
So I take them as much as I can. In fact, last year, one of the largest events I've ever done was that the Uptown Food Truck Fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which was something like 46 trucks, if I remember counting right.
Wow.
Yep.
And it was one of those, I had already booked a graduation party, so my one full-time employee that I brought on last year for the season was working a graduation party, and then it was me and nobody else. And I'm like, I got to have help. So my 2 oldest daughters had just come back from a youth trip with our church, completely exhausted. I said, all right, girls, you got to help me tomorrow.
I need you to step up.
They literally worked 12 hours handling
man.
every single sale, running my register, without skipping a beat.
And they were awesome.
And they were awesome. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
They crashed at
to
the
get 'em
end, but they really enjoyed it, and then we always try to do something fun afterwards. After Surly's Darkness Day, took my oldest daughter. She helped with that event, and it's great because they get to see such a wide cross-section of
Good experience. For them.
personality types, They saw one guy so inebriated, he picked up like a glass of mud and started chugging it. He went,
Well, maybe that part wasn't a good experience. But.
And I looked at my daughters and I said, see that? Don't do that. So you use that as a teaching moment. But
very much so.
was able to take her to a really nice restaurant. I took her to Bar La Grassa.
Oh, nice.
And
What
had
a nice
this really
reward.
nice meal. And she goes, Dad, when can we do that again?
I'd be glad to help,
Yeah,
whatever
right?
the case may be.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the time of the show when we got to do the Foodie Friday 5.
We have to.
With Larry Brenner from Vino in the Valley and Nate Beck from Nate Dogs. And we're going to start with you, Larry, the Foodie 5.
I didn't think there was going to be any quizzes here.
Yeah, we got a quiz here. I'm sorry about
Pop
that.
quiz.
Yep, 5
All right.
questions. 5 questions for each
All
of you.
right.
Larry, what's the first thing you ever made by yourself in the kitchen that you had to cook? As a kid or a teen or whatever that happened for you. Not just peanut butter and jelly. You get the idea.
Popcorn.
Popcorn,
I was a popcorn.
all right.
Our family, Schaefer side, my mom's side, we always had popcorn down on the farm every night after chores. And we had this big old pressure cooker. And we wouldn't use the top of the pressure cooker, obviously, but that there's something about that. I don't even know what kind of metal that was. But that homemade popcorn, I was the one that always made it for our family.
Nice.
We'd do it 4 or 5 nights a week.
Wow. And are you a popcorn fan to this day?
Yes,
And
big
do you,
time.
and do you make it at home now? And
Yes, it maybe contributed a little bit to my colon issues a couple of years ago, to be honest with you. But yes, I talked to Dr. John O'Leary at Abbott, and I said, Doc, I can still have popcorn, right? And he goes, yeah, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
So I am.
Maybe.
You gotta
All right.
live.
There's
Yeah.
no TMI on Foodie Friday, by the way. I thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Sorry about that.
Nate Beck, what's the first thing you ever made by yourself in the kitchen that you had to cook?
I remember it vividly. I made dinner for my parents when I was in 7th grade, and I made a recipe from the Frugal Gourmet, if you remember that show.
yes.
Chicken Kiev.
Nice.
at you.
Yep.
7th grade.
Pounded out the chicken breast, rolled the butter, and put it and got it all frozen. Chicken Kiev.
And how did it turn out, by the way?
Really good.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I remember though all the butter leaked out. It was like, now you look at all those things and you get the chicken just right, and then of course you put it in the pan and phew, butter just goes as that chicken tightens up. It just everything goes everywhere. Yeah,
But Mom and Dad like it.
yeah.
Question number 2. So on Foodie Friday, we try to demystify the word foodie because it has negative connotations. People think that it's pretentious. But this question, what's the most pretentious thing that you crave? And that can be a dish, that can be a cocktail, that can be an ingredient.
Geez, talk about demystifying, Larry. I already brought up popcorn. So we're well into demystification, so we're doing fine there. But how about that, Larry? The most sort of pretentious food that somebody might look at you and go, oh, geez, look what Brenner's eating. But you know what? You say, no, I don't care. I really like this. I crave it. I like it.
I'm just a meat and potatoes guy. I'm just a big ribeye steak and love to put a little lobster on the side maybe. But that's probably about as deep as I would get.
Yeah, right
What about a
on.
wine? Is there a wine that...
I like them all. I love reds. I love whites. It just depends on what I'm eating, and I don't necessarily pair them right.
You
It's
just pair
just
what
whatever
you
I
like.
feel like that
Yeah,
day. If it's
yeah.
a hot day, it's going to be a white, and if it's a nice cool day, I'd dive into the cab probably. So
What's like the old question? What's your most favorite wine? You ask the person at the wine tasting, and they go, "The one in my hand."
That's right.
How about you, Nate?
Boy, the most pretentious thing.
yeah, it's hard.
I'll use a recent experience. I have been fortunate to have been included with a good friend of mine in a guys' weekend that he's been doing for close to 10 years called Manuary. We all grow copious amounts, or as much as we can, facial hair, and we go down to this great cabin actually in Wabasha, actually not too far from where you are.
Yeah.
One of the guys his parents have a condo there, and we there's lots of drinking, of course. Mm-hmm. And we cook out in the woods, and I bring hot dogs and mustard meat and all of that. And I will say the most pretentious thing, normally it's kind of a beer and whiskey or mixed drink kind of a deal. We were at one of these bars in Wabasha, and one of the guys had a big pink frothy Mai Tai looking sort of drink. What? And I went, I need me one of those.
I want one now.
And I think I maybe had 3 of them. And I think I took so much crap for that. The next year, I ordered the same drink, but I requested instead of it that,
The foofy
shapely
glass,
the frou-frou glass, I asked to be poured in a pint glass, but I drank it nonetheless. That's maybe the most pretentious thing I had.
I like it, especially given the context of, if I might say it with gravitas again, Manuary.
Manuary, that's right.
Manuary. Larry, which person in your life taught you the most about food?
Good question.
I think it could be somebody. It could be somebody recent, somebody at Vino or something like that.
No,
too.
I think it would be. Well, it might have been that Christine number 3 because she was always. I know we keep going back there, but she and I would love to get together in the kitchen and she taught me some things because I was a lifelong bachelor and I really didn't cook much for myself.
Yeah.
She was the one that we're gonna come home tonight. She lived in Shoreview. She had a bottle of wine, she cracked it open. I get home and then we'd make something. We'd plan it during the lunchtime, and she'd say, "What are you feeling like tonight?" So I would say number 3 was probably the biggest influence on me in terms of learning what to do in a kitchen.
Yeah, and
I'm talking about food here.
Yeah, I got it. And experimenting and having fun.
Yes,
and we're
absolutely.
still talking. And we're still talking about
food.
just in the
Food,
kitchen.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
How about you, Nate Beck? Which person in your life taught you the most about food?
I actually think it would have been one of my uncles. He's since passed away, but he was a big foodie, if you want to call it that. He was a big fan of Jacques Pepin and Julia Child. Excuse me. And he and I always had a real love for food. And I learned a lot from him, even just kind of from some of his cookbooks after he passed away. He was probably the person who had the most similar taste to mine and really enjoyed kind of the art and passion of cooking. So I would say it was my Uncle Harley.
Uncle Harley.
Nice name. All right, question 4. The smell of this food makes you feel the hungriest.
Bacon.
Bacon.
Love the smell in the morning.
Wieners.
Yeah.
I mean,
all these years later. Yeah.
Honestly, and this might fit in the whole pretentious thing again too, but when people know you're a foodie, they expect that your favorite food is going to be a ribeye or lobster or foie gras or something that's just very
gnocchi.
That's why we like to ask. That's why we like to ask that question.
And my favorite food is a good skin on wiener.
There you go.
Hands down.
That's good. That's
Nice. Larry Brenner, what's your guilty pleasure food?
You can't say
Guilty
popcorn.
pleasure.
Can't say popcorn. Probably fettuccine because that's my favorite on our menu, and it's not really good for the belly.
It's not something you can eat all the time, right?
No, and unfortunately I have too much of it. But yeah, that would be, or pizza. Our brick oven pizzas are amazing. So, and I know that they maybe aren't the best for you, but boy, they taste good.
Yeah, guilty pleasure.
Yeah, that's my guilty pleasure.
Guilty pleasure. How about you, Nate Beck?
Cheese.
Any kind, or just all kinds, or guilty
Like if-
pleasure, any kind?
If I'm in a lowbrow mood, a big hunk of Colby Jack cut off the gigantic Costco block. And I just sit down with late night television and just chaw on that. We happen to have a very large German Shepherd at our house, also a girl. So I'm literally the only guy in the house of
7 girls.
7 girls.
Yeah.
And let's just say cheese is a high value treat for this particular dog. So every time I even grab the bag, or even the package of cheese, there comes the dog with. Can I have some?
Here's the cellophane crinkle going on at the refrigerator door.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would say probably my favorite is a bowl of it doesn't even have to be really nice ones, but a bowl of olives and some really good blue cheese.
All right.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah. Salty, tangy.
Yeah.
You
Fatty.
bring up the dog story, and at our house, it's popcorn, funnily enough. So
Really?
once you unwrap that weird cellophane around a popcorn bag, all of a sudden there's an entourage of 2 dogs and a cat for whatever reason, even though she doesn't even eat the popcorn. But it's like, something's here. I need it. I need it.
I'm going to be a part
like
of this,
it.
too.
Yep.
I'm not going too far. That's right. Larry Brenner, in a few seconds, what's on the docket in 2015 for Vino in the Valley? New stuff, different stuff, special stuff?
We've added some panels that come down that'll protect people from the elements. So if we have a storm, cold, windy, whatever, we can protect them. They have huge windows, and then I'm putting solar power in.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
adding solar. Yeah, it
That's
goes in
super
April.
cool.
Yeah.
So on the roof of the pavilion or
it'll
out
be
in
hidden.
the field? Or?
It'll be out in the field beyond the pine trees to the north of the building. You won't be able to see it from the dining room, but as you walk down to the through the vineyard and down to the river, there it'll be all the panels.
Because there's more sun there, too, I would
Yeah,
gather. Something like that as well?
yeah.
Because you're down in the valley, after all. You got to find out where the sun's going to happen.
Yes.
That's
I'm excited
super
about
cool.
that.
Yeah, that's great.
And
How
your,
about
cool.
your season starts May 7th, correct?
That's
when
correct.
the first day open?
Thursday before Mother's Day. Yes.
Very cool.
love it.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Nate Beck plans for 2015 that are different, something new on the horizon that you want to have folks know about?
Not a ton different. I think I would like to, at this point, or at this year, I would really love to be able to get my hot dogs branded with Nate Dogs so that people could actually buy them in stores,
Nice.
serve them with. I think we're looking at, it's even with 2 carts, we're at a point now where we have to, on certain weekends, like this year, June 6th is the big graduation party weekend. You can only do so many parties where you're there.
And people like your brand.
And people like our brand.
It'd
It'd be really fun to have kind of a friend, this designer friend of mine just actually came up with this idea, and I was like, this is a great idea. To have a package that somebody could do where you get maybe like the tier 2, where you can't have the cart there, but we still bring the Nate Dogs to your event, and you can have them and serve them there, and it's maybe a little less, of the whole environment and feel, but you still get the really high quality product, and we can serve those folks and then not have to turn them down and say no. So I think that'd be something we'd really like to explore this year.
Or something that you could add as a leave behind thing, like for this amount,
Exactly.
then we can also leave you with 3 dozen or 5 dozen
Absolutely.
in addition to serving you
Absolutely.
there. Yeah, that'd
Yep.
be great, aside
Yep.
from the retail thing too. Nice.
Yep.
Good to have you here, Nate Beck.
Thank you.
Nate Beck from Nate Dogs and Larry Brenner from Vino in the Valley. Good to see you, Larry.
Good to see you too, BT and Lydia. Thank you very
Yeah.
much
Thank
for
you,
having
Jen.
me.
Yeah, thank you, BT.
Thank you.
It's another fun Foodie Friday here on the Alive and Social Network. Now join us next week. Among our guests will be Tammy Cabrera from the Muddy Paws Cheesecake Company.
she brings food.
Let's bring some samples, Tammy. How about that?
Tammy's a cool lady. I
Yeah,
like
she
her.
sure is, and she does a lot of outreach in the community. That's super cool
Yep.
as well. There are more great shows on the Alive and Social Network that you can take a listen to through the podcast world. Make sure you visit the website aliveandsocial.com, and you will find so many more listening opportunities from Jim Suhan to the Pub Crawl and many, many others. My co-host is Lydia Turner. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, Dad.
That's another Foodie Friday on the Alive and Social Network. I'm Brian Turner. Thanks for listening.